we can taste that same love in kind of humbler, more day-to-day ways. It doesn't have to be a great awakening. It can just be, some little recognition, oh, I'm in pain, or oh, my beloved is in pain. And there's a sweetness and a softness that enters our heart. And and that's not like a cosmic awakening, but it's so beautiful, and it's the same love.
Yes.
It's just another face of it. So I'm
Yes.
trying to say, because I've been in a world in meditation where a lot of people, they want the big awakening, but actually I'm saying that's great, but don't pursue it too hard.
Right.
And I totally agree with you. It's always a release. It's always a letting go. So
Right.
that's a sort of softer process.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and blessings, everyone. And you know who I am, Michael Bernard Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center and the host of this particular podcast, which is entitled Take Back Your Mind, where we are always enthused about individuals coming to a greater understanding that oftentimes the mind has been programmed by external experiences, interpretation of experiences, and ways that we've been imprinted since the time we've had a birth into this particular human incarnation. And as we grow and unfold, we want to basically take back our mind so that it's not programmed by the ways of the world or society, but that our original imprint from the source itself begins to take over as we awaken. We're going to have a good conversation about that. And I'm so enthused that he's with us this morning or afternoon or evening or whatever time zone you're in on Take Back Your Mind. Henry, is that Shukman?
It is Shukman. You got
Shukman.
it.
Henry
Yeah.
Shukman. And he's here to shake up your little world, your little paradigm. He's a poet. He's an author, Zen master in the Sanbo Zen lineage. After a spontaneous spiritual awakening at the age of 19, Henry embarked on a long journey of healing and a deeper awakening through meditation. Since then, he's led a growing number of meditation practitioners in Europe and in the US. He's a spiritual director emeritus of Mountain Cloud Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Has been featured on major podcasts such as Tim Ferriss, Waking Up with Sam Harris, The Kevin Rose Show, and The One You Feed. You all know about that particular metaphor. He has also created The Way, a new first-of-a-kind meditation app that offers a long-term path into the deep end of meditation. His new book, Original Love, The Four N's, INNS, on the Path of Awakening, about his unique approach to the path of meditation and spiritual awakening. And that particular book is out now. Henry, welcome to Take Back Your Mind.
So happy and honored to be with you. And I just got to say, what a great title. Take Back Your Mind. What a great project. It's exactly right. I feel very deeply aligned with what's implicit in those words. Thank you.
Absolutely. I like to tell people, take back your mind, take back your heart, take back your Sundays, take back your life. Don't become an extra in the little tiny reels, REELs of the broadcast of our society, but to be a star in your own awakening. And so I appreciate that you understand what I'm saying here.
Yes. Taking back the heart. Take back your existence, your actual existence. The very fact of this blessing right now of existing. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That sends us right before we began to record. That sends us right into what you were saying about gratitude. Just entering into that space of being grateful that we exist at all, you know,
Exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
powerful field. And let me
Yeah.
ask you this, let's go back to your life story a little bit. Particularly, I mean, there's some things I want to talk about, but particularly when you discovered that your parents were spies. I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that impact your understanding of identity,
Yeah.
trust? I mean,
Yeah.
you had one perception of your parents, and then at some point you discovered that they had a different identity. How did that impact you? How did that happen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It happened when I was an adult. And for me and my brother and my sister, I'm in the middle, we were all astonished and couldn't really even believe it at first because both our parents were professors at Oxford. And so they're very kind of non, it's not like an exciting action-packed life. The most exciting thing is the weekly seminar and a lecture series, and books they wrote, of course, but not like that they would be engaged in dangerous activities with, the what was then the looming enemy of Soviet Russia, you know.
Uh-huh.
So we could hardly believe it. And there's another loop actually that my my dad, he didn't know that it was my mother who recruited him. Like she was in first.
Wow.
And I mean I'll tell you, but coming back to the question about trust and identity, already actually my parents, I think probably that's one of the causes. They were very unstable in their marriage. They were pretty unhappy in it. They
Mm,
split up when I was 7.
mm,
And so there was a lot of, I grew up in a climate of a lot of secrecy and not saying things. And it's partly British culture in the 1970s where there was just not an openness. The candor and frankness and vulnerability and openness that the whole therapeutic culture has brought mercifully, to the English speaking world. It wasn't here yet in the UK back then. So there was a lot of unspoken dynamics and energies that were really uncomfortable that I grew up with. And I think I was a sensitive boy and it really impacted me without my exactly knowing why, you
yeah.
know, and I'm sure that espionage background played a significant role in the setup of a marriage where there were secrets and there were affairs and there were it was a difficult marriage and bam, it broke, and that was very painful. But then when we discovered this, it was just like, oh my gosh.
Did that answer a lot of questions in terms of like an energetic field you'd been living in, but you didn't quite know what it was?
Yes, it began
Suddenly,
to.
suddenly you realize, oh, my parents are spies.
Yeah.
Oh, now I know why this energy or why I felt this way or why I felt there was a silence or a secret or something like that.
Exactly. And also there was a thing, Michael, which is this was the Cold War. It was really the height of the Cold War. And they were both in their slightly different ways because they didn't work together. Like I said, my dad didn't even know it was my mum who recruited him. But it was a mission, it was a real, like there's a very hazardous, dangerous empire that
Yeah.
is an enemy, and we want to fight against it. So I think that was a motivating and even kind of inspiring, energy for them. So I picked up also, I think, like having a project in life, a higher purpose of some kind that
Hmm.
is, driving it. There was that too, but
Hmm.
it also meant kids, family, they're secondary,
Mm.
So it, honestly, the biggest thing that I had to awaken to was how I had absorbed these views myself so that I was imprinted with them.
Yeah.
And I bust out, when I was 19 in a spectacular way. But
Yeah,
but
you had
then
a spiritual awakening at 19.
I did. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was that when it happened. I was
Uh-huh.
I was away from home. I'd been working on a gap year abroad in South America, very far from rainy England, and at the end of my time there, I actually wrote my first book as well while I was there.
At
Um,
19?
at 19, it came out a
Mhm,
few years later in my
mhm,
mid 20s. But when I was there, I was on a beach one afternoon, one evening actually, watching the sun go down and studying like the light on the water. And I was trying to figure out, is this light? It's so bright, but the water's so black when the kind of scales of light move around. And all of a sudden, it wasn't outside me. It was like,
mm,
or I wasn't outside it. The idea that I lived in this body and the world was out there, that collapsed. And I found what I really was just one
mm.
with the universe.
Yes,
It wasn't like I belonged in the universe. The universe was me. And
yes.
I was overwhelmed by love, by this vast, timeless, spaceless love. And it was as if there was almost nothing but that love. And I'd had zero interest in that kind of thing. It wasn't like I'd never examined what the word spiritual meant. I grew up in an atheist household, a atheist community. There was no idea of things like that. And but I knew it was the truth. There was just no doubt. This was how things really were.
Did you have the language then that you have now? I mean, how did you frame that in your awareness? Because I
Yeah.
remember having a similar experience when I was a young kid after I bit into a radish and I realized I was at one with everything. But I didn't have any language for it. I just tried to explain it to my mom, but it just came out gobbledygook, you know.
Yeah. Right.
But
Right. I couldn't speak of it to anyone,
yeah.
actually, but in my heart, I had no doubt that I'd just discovered the truth of my life. It's
Mm,
so much so that I had this clear understanding that my life was fulfilled and I could die now and it would
mm,
be okay because
mm.
I'd accomplished what needed to be accomplished. I'd found the truth, That's how it felt.
That's powerful. I mean, so many people live their life with an expectation that if they accomplish something in the physical world, some kind of worldly success or acquisition of money or properties or whatever the society says is the gold ring that you're supposed to get, then you finally made it. And you're saying that at this particular time, when you woke up to your essential nature, that was it.
I
Eureka.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'd found what needed to be found, And honestly, I hadn't even been searching.
Mm.
It had just came like that. But here's the thing. That was just the start.
Right, of course.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, 6 weeks later I went home. Those 6 weeks were I was living like light as a feather, transparent. All I could feel was where there was suffering, and I wanted to help any way I could. And then I went home. And within half an hour of coming back to, uh, actually, in this case, it was my father's household because he met me off the bus from the airport. And I got home, and suddenly I was back in this world
Mm.
where I had to live in a totally adaptive, constricted, really, in a way, false way that had
Mm.
not been my real self and
Hmm.
identity.
Hmm.
And I was so open now that all the trauma and pain of my childhood, it just overwhelmed me.
Mm.
I didn't have the customary defenses that I'd lived with as a child so I could cope. They'd gone.
Mm. Coping mechanisms disappeared. So you were just
Yes,
like totally vulnerable.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was too much. And I went into a tailspin of despair, thinking I'd lost this jewel, that gold ring, whatever.
Mm.
I'd lost it and I'd never find it again. That's what I felt.
Mm.
And it was really, really painful. And it took some years actually to to come out of it. I mean, I functioned, I
Yeah.
went to college but
Yeah.
in my heart, I was dragging myself through the world,
Obviously, there's anxiety there. And
a
was there
lot of,
depression as well? I mean, you're being
yeah.
bombarded by the the thought forms of the world that are making you contract. You don't have your defense mechanisms up. So is your energy depressed now, combined with anxiety? How did you navigate through that?
Yeah, it was both. I lived with a lot of what I felt to be dread, which
Mm,
in fact, I'd call it anxiety now,
yeah.
and yeah, depression, like really constricted and kind of oppressed, and I couldn't function freely. My energy was so boxed in. It was okay. I found a few little outlets. One of them was actually singing. I used to sing a lot, and I
Mm.
grabbed I could strum the guitar, and I would go to parties and play, and it could even had a tiny little band, and we'd get hired for little gigs, and we'd sing these songs, and I was crazy about Caribbean music actually, so I used to listen to all these any records I could find of calypsos and mentos and these songs from the Caribbean. I'd learn them and I'd play them, and so I had sort of something going that was
Hmm.
a little brighter,
Hmm.
but it was only when I started meditating at the age of 24, and
Mm,
it really shifted because then I could recognize how much I was hurting. I, I,
mm,
I could reckon my nervous system had a chance to discharge everything it had been carrying, in pain and trauma and anxiety, and I realized, hey, I'm really unhappy.
mm,
And as soon as I was meditating, a few weeks in, I could recognize it. And I was lucky that I had a couple of friends who were in a therapy group, and
hmm.
I joined. I joined. So the journey began of healing, really.
Hmm. So then these vulnerabilities, your meditation allowed you to become conscious of places within you that you weren't happy. And that
Yes.
and there's a tremendous vulnerability that you have now because you don't have your previous identity and previous coping mechanisms. So meditation wasn't used to get high. Meditation became a way of you becoming awake to like observing what's going on and being able to stay with it until some kind of transformation took place. Describe a little bit about your movement through that.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. Thank you, Reverend Mike. That's exactly on track.
Mhm.
It was this beginning to calm the nervous system
Mm,
that allowed me to start being present to, my actual state of being,
mm,
and recognize, oh, there's pain here.
mm.
And then therefore being able to say, I need help.
Yes.
uh, and then reaching out for help, because I feel in a certain way when I look back on it, maybe with the exception of that strange moment on the beach when I was 19, I'd say almost every key moment of healing and moment of growth, there's been at least one other person involved. I think
Mm,
there's something about the alchemy of we,
mm-hmm,
more than one,
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
is so key to, and it's certainly been key to all my healing in various kinds of therapy I've explored. But there was a point where, so yeah, I'd start to get, very beautiful states of mind would come on sometimes in the meditation. I'd just rest in them, and I think it's great for the nervous system. But the system that I was training in meditation didn't really talk about the kind of awakening experience I'd had when I
right.
was 19. And then I started to learn about Zen, which a dear friend of mine, another writer called Natalie Goldberg, she's fantastic actually. Um, she was into Zen, and I realized that they knew about that kind of experience. They were interested in it. And that was mind blowing to me
Mm,
because up till that point, I didn't know that it was a real thing that other people knew about. You know,
right.
it was so thrilling to find that wow, there's sisterhoods and brotherhoods and people who are interested in that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that felt like a huge
You're
blessing.
not alone. You're not
Not
alone.
alone.
There's a vast community out here. that
That's
knows
right.
about these things, or individuals who've had direct encounter with that. So that
Ex
buoyed you up a little bit, I imagine.
exactly. And it also held out this sort of possibility that, wow, what if you could go further?
Hmm.
What if, what if you could actually, in some way, maybe have access to that
Yeah,
extraordinary condition, on
yeah,
a regular basis?
yeah,
How different life would be.
yeah. I understand. I can remember for me, when I was going through a similar awakening, uh, I don't know how I discovered this man, but you know who Walter Russell is?
I've heard the name, but I'm sorry, I can't quite
He's a
place it.
great,
Yeah.
great mystic that emerged out of America and went into cosmic consciousness and wrote his books without any editing from this very exalted state. And when I got a small book about him, and then when I started looking at his experiences, it let me know that I was not insane. I said, "Oh, this is a thing. This is a state of consciousness. I'm not nuts, you know." And then after that, I began to understand the deeper meaning of the mystical teachings of Jesus, Gautama the Buddha. I
Yeah.
began to say, "Oh, I get it." Not that I get totally, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is people talk about this," because
Yes.
for me, when I opened up, I was a senior at USC, and I was a psychobiology major, and coming out of atheism to a degree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when it happened, it was like, I'm nuts. Something's going on here that I can't explain. So
Right.
I understand what you're saying when you found that there's actually a community of people who've had insights around this way. It gives you a sense of comfort.
Exactly. Isn't that a beautiful thing, that
Yeah,
that sense that, wow, I'm not alone. And
right.
yeah, there's a community here, and it can help me. And
Yeah.
and I can become part of it. So for me, that was just so critical. I'm fascinated that this came. Did it come kind of out of the blue for you as well? And
It happened. It was a steady increase of things that were happening that I didn't know what they were. I mean, I was in a meeting one time and I heard a voice behind me say, if you were to take over the world tomorrow, would the world be any different? And I turned around and there was nobody there. And then the same voice came out of my being. And I looked around the room and I could see the pathology of everybody in the room. And I realized even though we had a really good ideology for changing the world, the beings in the room, if we were to take over, the world wouldn't be any different. And so I left the meeting. The
yeah,
next week, somebody actually shot somebody in that meeting. Somebody that had a territorial issue and needed to be right, pulled out a gun and shot somebody. And
wow,
that left me like without anything. I transferred from Morehouse College, went to SC. And when I went to SC, these experiences kept happening. I didn't have any context for what was going on. And then it culminated in a lucid dream. I was stabbed to death. And when I woke up, I could see differently. I could see you talk about the love that penetrated my being and the beauty that's everywhere. Even the lint in the rug glowed with luminosity and beauty, everything. And I had no words for this, but I never could get back in the box again. And so there was a period of searching what had happened to me, what's going on. And then I started bumping into the teachings of beings that had woken up and then realized, oh, like you just said, oh, this is a real thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And and so it came on suddenly, and then there was a death, then an
yes,
awakening, and
yes,
then for years of integration,
yes,
embodiment, chemicalization, releasing,
yeah.
looking at parts of myself that I didn't want to take with me on the journey. You
Yeah.
know.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, loving them to death, or
yeah.
loving them
Just
so they can dissolve or be okay.
embracing.
And yeah.
I remember going on a retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh,
Uh-huh.
and it was
Yeah.
back in the day. He wasn't famous. I mean, there was
Yeah.
like maybe 30 of us at most. Maybe not that. Maybe not even that many
Yeah.
at a retreat. And And I remember what he was sharing in the small gatherings. He was giving words to insights I was living, but I didn't have the total words yet. But what he was saying, I said, "Oh yeah," and so I remember that was very impactful for me, as well as Walter Russell and other teachers that most of them were dead at this time, but I was able to communicate with them. They were very real to me,
How
and
beautiful.
yeah,
Hey, we share that with Thich Nhat Hanh. I went to this place in France, Plum Village. There was
yeah,
Thich Nhat Hanh, and
yeah,
when I was, I must have been like 29, and
yeah,
um, and there was only 17 of us,
yeah. They
and
were a very
him.
small group. Yeah,
Yeah, and it was amazing to be. I mean, I now look back on it and I think, what a privilege, and having tea with him and his little hermitage
yeah,
there.
same here. It's
You know?
like I remember one time. I'm just saying 30, but it probably wasn't even that many, you
Right,
know. But I
right.
remember later on seeing a poster where he was advertising his retreat, and there was a picture of me. We were doing a walking meditation, and I saw a picture of me at the end of the line at the back. I said, "Oh, that's me." Somebody sent it to me one day, and it was me. And I remember one day I was jogging. I was jogging down this hill early in the morning, like 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
and Thich Nhat Hanh was walking up the hill. He was walking, and I was jogging, and I had this thought. I wonder if Thich Nhat Hanh jogs. Just a thought. So we get into the small gathering. He's at the blackboard writing things and talking. In the middle of his talk, he turns around and he looks in my direction. He says, "You know, this morning someone had a thought, do I jog? And I want you to know I do jog, but I'm conscious of every step." I said, "Oh my God." And the
That's a
journey
great.
continues.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You had a bicycle accident that
Yes.
changed your consciousness, where you had an awareness, from what I understand, that because you had the concussion, you couldn't think that well, but so it moved you more into your heart. Break that down for us. That
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
groundbreaking for you.
Well, it was, there were various circumstances. One was I fell off my bike and hit the side of my head. It wasn't at the time, it didn't seem very major. After I did the concussion protocol of being in a semi-dark room for a few days, and I got better.
Mm,
But then, actually, we had a really difficult family situation arise with somebody very close and dear to us, and that was a real blow to the heart. And then I had to do some long drives, and after a weekend of driving, a long distance in the weekend, back home again, I I realized that my brain I just was feeling really weird and slow and
mm,
and just kind of brain fog and and it didn't clear.
mm.
And every time I went for a bike ride now, I'd be fine if I was going slowly up a hill, but as soon as I came down the hill, I'd get dizzy and feel really strange. And yeah, sure enough, my brain was having a really hard time recovering, and it had its optical system, visual system was messed up, so it couldn't process peripheral vision easily. So driving and fast bike riding were hard for it. And it coincided with COVID lockdown starting.
Wow.
And so our center
This is
closed.
recent. This is recent then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like 4 years ago. So this
Mhm.
wasn't, for me, it wasn't like a whole new breakthrough thing. It was more like I just had no choice but to migrate everything down to here,
Mm,
down to my heart,
mm,
and because I could live from here, and I could I could offer and share and exist from here. But if I got up into my head too much, I,
uh,
cou- I couldn't handle it. And it's interesting actually when you talked about that lucid dream of being killed. I did a lot of dream work at one phase. This is 20 years back, and I had a series of dreams where I was killed,
mm, mhm.
and that preceded a, the deepest sort of awakening experience that I've ever had, which was a real shift, and things didn't really go back after that. That was
Yes.
when, I it was like everything just disappeared,
Yeah.
and 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 I and then when it came back, there was. it was so beautiful. It was like this whole root system in my body had been dug out, and
Mm,
there was a great space left that was
mm,
always filling with sweet spring water.
mm. Oh, that's
And
sweet. That's
yeah,
a sweet description. Yeah.
and it was just a constant upwelling of love. But years on, that was always available. But my brain was fully active, and I'd use it to think of new ways of teaching and stuff, and because I was busy teaching by then, teaching this awareness thing. But when this brain injury happened, something shifted in me, and it just became all about tenderness and
Mm,
heartfeltness,
mm,
and I'd
mm.
had this heartbreak actually as well, and I realized that I didn't want my heart to be ever be closed. I wanted it just to stay open and be open-hearted, and that was the true way to be wholehearted.
Ah,
You know? And so that's what this book, Original Love, it's about different ways that I mean, you and I've just talked about these experiences where we fell into a boundless love one way
mm,
or another, or this boundless reality that is seething with love.
hmm,
and
hmm.
and and but I wanted to, so I wanted in this book, I wanted to say, hey, that's real, and all
Yeah,
of us can find it. And
yeah.
I know that the meditative path is one path that can help, but man, it's a law unto itself. It'll show itself when it shows itself. And we can set up conditions, but it seems to be like it comes when it comes, the real full-blown experience. But there's so much we can do in contacting it and sensing it and receiving it, maybe less dramatically,
Yes.
but and maybe not the whole full blown kind of nothing but boundless,
Yeah.
fire of love or whatever it is for us.
Yeah.
But we can access it in smaller ways. And
Yeah.
so that this book is an attempt to share
You're right.
paths that will help with that.
Yeah. You're speaking of the way I hear it is this boundless love, by whatever name we want to call it, is here.
Yeah.
And then we create the condition inside through our spiritual practice, which is primarily letting go of something
It is. Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
that which is already here can shine forward. We're not like adding anything to ourselves, but we're actually eliminating a perception, a belief, a healing of a trauma,
Yeah.
a limited point of view, something to that effect. And then we're awakening, but it's actually the elimination of something where we were blind, but now we see something that's been here all the time. It's like,
Exactly.
whoa, you know,
Exactly. Exactly.
where have I been?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I created some kind of chimera that beguiled me
right,
and took me away from seeing what was here all along. This,
right,
this, yeah, this true home that's always here.
right.
But I'm all, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I want you to finish your point there.
Well, I was just going to say, but there's also the point that we can taste that same love in kind of humbler, more day-to-day ways. It doesn't have to be a great awakening.
Mm-hmm.
It can just be, some little recognition, oh, I'm in pain, or oh, my beloved is in pain. And there's a sweetness and a softness that enters our heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like a cosmic awakening, but it's so beautiful, and it's the same love.
Yes,
It's just another face of it. So I'm trying to
yes,
say, because I've been in a world in meditation where a lot of people, they want the big awakening, but actually I'm saying that's great, but don't pursue it too hard.
right,
And I totally agree with you. It's always a release. It's always a letting go. So
right.
that's a sort of softer process.
Yeah, I think like it comes like a thief in the night. And
Yes.
you notice after a period of time that you're a little different. You don't know,
Yes.
you didn't even notice the change. Maybe
Right.
your friends recognize the change in you, that things that used to bother you don't bother you as much, or you have a
Yes.
little bit more patience or a little bit more kindness, but you don't even notice the change
Yeah.
until you notice it. Then you realize that you've changed, but it,
Yeah.
like you said, it didn't come with a great cacophony of lights and sounds and brilliance thing. It's just like you're different than you were a
Yes.
year ago or 2 years ago, but it kind of
Yes.
snuck up on you,
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So the message is like it's so sweet, and so we needn't worry, like, am I getting it? Am I not getting it? It's all it is a taste
Hmm.
of tenderness and sweetness. And and that's going to come in all these different little nooks and crannies and little cracks and little micro surrenders.
I like that micro surrenders. Before we get into your book a little bit more, Original Love, um, someone's going through a kind of a depression or trauma right now. I mean, obviously you navigated through a lot of that. And when I listen to you speak and hear under the words that you're saying, you kind of embraced whatever it is that was present. You didn't push it away, you didn't resist it, you didn't pretend it wasn't there. You kind of embraced it, and it became very present for you. And then that helped with the transmutation and ultimate transcending of it. So what technique, or how would you at this moment guide anybody that's listening that's in the throes of
Yeah.
depression or anxiety or worry or fear,
Yeah.
or what would you say to them right now?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, first of all, I would want to, hold out a hand of recognition.
Hmm.
Say, that because you're not alone.
Hmm.
Many human beings go through what you're going through right now around the planet. Who knows? Maybe there's 500 million people feeling like you. Who knows? It's part of your human makeup to go into these states sometimes. So just recognize, like, I'd want to normalize it, like there's nothing wrong with you for
Nothing wrong
feeling
with
this
you.
way.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because I mean, certainly in my case, there was so much shame I had as a young man about not feeling as good as I thought I should feel,
Mm,
and that just added another layer of pain.
hmm.
you know. So the recognition of our human vulnerability, that yeah, we're gonna have hard times, and they're not just external, but they create inner hard times as well.
Hmm.
And so, you know, in terms of methodology, you know, as a meditation guide or companion for people, I like to be always working with this. Can I can I soften my resistance? Can I
Okay.
soften my resistance? And because if there's pain in me, the more I resist it, the more actually I amplify it. And it's really
Yes.
it's
Oh, yeah.
it's counterintuitive, because the last thing I want to do is kind of allow it. I want to get rid of it.
Right.
But if we can somehow get to a place of accepting and allowing and even welcoming,
Hmm.
that brings on a shift where our awareness goes from being really tight and narrow to just a little bit larger. It's like a sense of our own capacity to hold something grows. It may grow, it's almost like it grows half an inch all
Hmm.
around. And
Hmm.
that's just enough to invite a kind of warmth that can embrace the pain rather than fighting with it
Right.
and trying to get rid of it.
Right. Right. You're not resisting it. And then being in that moment, I like to say sometimes it's like putting the observer effect on steroids. You're having an intention to wake up, but you're not resisting what's going on. So everything you observe
Yeah.
shifts on a subatomic level just because you're observing it.
Oh,
So if you observe with intention,
yeah.
without judgment,
Yeah.
then you're basically allowing those thought forms that have become perceptions and emotions to actually change based on your observation with no resistance. So
That is, uh,
it's an embracing. Yeah.
you nailed it. That is
Yeah.
exactly it. But I've never heard it put in that. That's the perfect language for it,
Yeah.
because
Thank you.
you're observing it in such a way that it can transform. And I love that, because that's what it's like when, with this state of allowing.
Yes.
It's like I find that, let's say there's some trace of pain in my chest or something, and I
Yeah.
don't exactly know what it is, but I don't actually need to right away. I don't need to know its causes. I can just, oh,
That's
Henry.
so important what you just said. That is so important what you just said, because many people go through a kind of a therapeutic model where they start to look for the cause of the distress first
Yeah, yeah,
before they go into what could possibly heal it with which is what you're discussing right now. Because
yeah.
oftentimes you discover the genesis of it in the process of healing, rather than thinking you're
Exactly.
going to thinking you're going to be healed because you discovered the genesis of it. That doesn't work that way.
Exactly. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Totally. We're on. I love that we're really on the same page on a
Oh,
lot of things.
absolutely.
Actually, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
We've been
But so,
practitioners for a long time. We're kind of
yeah.
swimming in the same ocean here.
That's right. And it seems like, well, I love this, I'm feeling this, Reverend Michael, that for both of us, that ocean has got to include both the boundless cosmic X, whatever it is, but also all the human trauma and
Yeah.
pain and
Yeah.
grief and heartbreak. It's
Yeah.
got to be that ocean of both,
Yeah.
because we don't want one and banish the other,
Right.
because there's a thing in the world of meditation actually where people are all in on therapeutic mindfulness. I'm going to work with my emotions, and I'm going to, develop my self-love, which is all good, but they don't know about the big picture. you know so
Right.
you can both ways. You can easily get kind of in a silo where it's all about therapeutic mindfulness, and then I also know people who are in this, yeah, I'm all non-dual, man. It's just totally non-dual. Yourself, so yourself, you just made it up. It's nothing. All you got to do is see through yourself and you'll be well. That may be true, and I wouldn't really disagree, but I don't think it's very helpful for somebody in pain. you
Right.
know so
Absolutely.
I think it's the great ocean where you got both.
Right.
You're open to human pain, and you're open to the boundless cosmic unity.
Right.
you know
Right. Right.
that
You're reminding me of there's a scripture, the 139th Psalm, that talks about the fact that the darkness and the light are both alike to God, and the darkness shines as the day. It's a deep mystical psalm that's really mystical. It's a mystical awareness because it doesn't have any logical meaning. But the darkness and the light are both alike to this grand presence. Because in that darkness is the ooze of rebirth and transformation and creation. And it's not evil. It's not negative. It's not something you want to, as you're talking about, chase away. You actually want to
yeah,
embrace it because
yes.
it's all the same
uh,
to the vast
ex-
source, to the vast source of life itself. We
ex-
depart, we compartmentalize,
yes,
we
yes,
separate,
yes,
and then the
man.
other thing I'm hearing is, when you're witnessing at that level without judgment, without pushing away, after a while, you can actually tell the difference. Going back to the non-dual piece,
Yeah,
you can tell the difference between the content floating through and you.
yeah,
You realize
yes.
it's here, but it's not really me, but it's here.
That's right.
And then like this, sometimes you laugh,
Exactly. Because you're contacted with the
Right,
vastness.
right,
So whatever arises, it's just a play in the
right,
context of that great context.
right.
That's beautifully put. Man, I got to look at that psalm when
Yeah,
we
one,
when we hang up. I'm gonna go
139th. It was one of my favorite
139.
Psalms that was
Yeah.
introduced to me. I mean, I've read it before, but I really got a deeper reflection on it through Dr. Howard Washington Thurman.
Okay.
And Dr.
Okay.
Thurman was a great mystical theologian that, of course, brought the nonviolent movement to Dr. King. And when
Oh,
he went to India and sat with Gandhi and a number of other people, and Gandhi got civil disobedience from Thoreau. And then Thurman brings it back from India and brings it to Dr. King during the civil rights movement. But he articulated the 139th Psalm with such a mystical, deep felt experience of his oneness that when I would hear his voice, it just like, I got it. It was, so it's always been one of my favorite Psalms as it was
Yeah.
reintroduced to me by Dr. Thurman.
I'm so happy to hear that because,
Yeah.
you know, I find it, some of the Judeo-Christian teachings are sometimes I don't get, they don't seem as plugged into this vastness that we're sharing,
Yeah.
and I mean, I know there's so much, I guess there's so much in the Bible
That's
that
a
is
whole
a
nother
vast,
discussion. But
yeah,
yeah, I agree, because
yeah,
it was later on that I could see the mysticism, particularly in the New Testament. In
yeah,
the Old Testament, it's primarily history and a projection of a human God onto the source,
yeah,
God being jealous and upset and having chosen people and all of that, you know. But we,
yeah.
it's like there's an old statement that God made us in his image and likeness, and we've been trying to return the favor ever since, So there's a whole dynamic in the Old Testament that never set well with me. But there is a lot of mystical awareness in the New Testament. And but regardless of that, um,
Yeah,
I'm going to get to your book a little bit, but I want to speak a little bit about, because you touched on it briefly, the power of community. You're
yeah,
going through all of this, and you found the community. You
yeah,
you had an insight that, oh, other people are having this experience. You found a community. The community is extremely important, which compelled me years ago against a deep resistance I had within me at the time to actually start a community. You started a community,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
had
yeah.
to give up resistance to doing it. But community is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, that was a journey. I recognized the need of it, and I started going to centers and going to retreats, of course, always with others and meeting teachers. But actually, it took a while before I was really ready. And when I was really ready, I was the moment, I mean, I didn't, the moment I was ready, I met, I met this teacher, and it was just hand in glove. He was my teacher. There wasn't even a decision process. It was
Hmm.
just the easiest thing. And in part, I think it was because he was a really, he was an ordinary guy. He was a retired lawyer with a
Mm.
family. He had a severely handicapped child, and he'd founded a charity to look after severely handicapped people, disabled people. He was a very deep-hearted man, but he was like an ordinary guy. But he was, he'd opened up to all the stuff we're talking about, and he'd found a way to be to be in the world but not of the world, or whatever, and he was connected
Mm.
all the time to
Mm.
the unnameable, to the
Hmm. Hmm.
source. At least
Hmm.
that's how it felt to me. But he was also normal, and that made me able to trust him. And he didn't have a big following, and he didn't wear robes. It was sort of, it was like down to earth. And for whatever I guess I had issues from my childhood with authority figures and father, but potentially father type figures.
You despise his parents.
Exactly. But once I trusted him and started being actually guided beautifully by him, that also enabled me to trust, yeah, the community that he was part of. So
Hmm.
and that helped me to trust much more in life, trust people much more, which had been an issue for me.
Right.
I mean, it was part of my childhood experience, that I also had this really severe skin condition for much of my childhood, which brought a lot of shame because it was disfiguring. And
Hmm.
so I had imprints that I mean, when I look back, I can understand that I was maybe slow to trust.
Yeah. Yeah. You were
you know
protect. You had protection armor around you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I sometimes said over the years that authentic spiritual community grants you immunity from the lower frequencies of life. That it's not a bunch of perfect people getting together, but it's people seeking to have a perfect practice to the best of their ability. And then you, in community, you get to practice. You get to practice forgiveness, non-judgment, compassion, generosity.
Yes.
You get to practice being kind, within the community, and then you
Yes.
take it out wherever you go. So the community
Right.
gives you a space of mirrored reflection to where
Yes.
you are at any given moment. And then there's guidance and there's teachings and there's practices and things like that. So it's like you have a mini, you're in the world, but you're not of it, but you have a mini, like a conclave of
Yeah.
beings who are having an intention to
Yeah.
wake up, you know.
Yes.
And I know for me, sometimes it's like I forget. I'm surrounded by people that have intention to grow a lot. So I sometimes forget that in the world there are so many people who don't even know anything about this. They're not even they're captured by the latest news item on television or something on the internet or and they haven't taken back their mind yet. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
you have to have just a lot of compassion. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
fortunately, the minority of people that's growing, that's actually has a practice and intention, I believe that frequency is way more powerful than the majority of people who are sleeping, because that frequency of awakening is way more powerful. Love is way more powerful than greed and hate. And so we keep on marching on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. And I totally agree that it's growing. It's growing fast, I
Yeah.
think. Like I mean, when I started meditating in the late 80s, it was fringe. It
Yes.
was, that maybe there
Yes.
were 10,000 people in the UK who did it or something.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
they've got it in the Houses of Parliament. And
Right.
they, and there's got to be, I don't know, maybe it's 10 million at least trying to do it now, and the way I see it is like, yeah, a lot of the current proliferation of meditation is about stress reduction, and it's not really about the bigger stuff that we're talking about,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. It's still really good.
Doesn't
and
matter.
it, and it's also setting up this ground of millions of people who are going to be ready for
Yeah.
the bigger stuff. So in
Yeah.
fact, that's why we made the app the way,
Yeah.
because it's like we want to, the Trojan horse, we want to smuggle it
Yes.
in.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just having a conversation with somebody today about that. You go back 40 years. And this was woo-woo. A lot of this
Yeah,
was woo-woo stuff. Now it's science. You got
yeah,
you
yeah,
got
yeah,
biofeedback, mapping the brain. You
yeah,
can measure the fields of people emanating from them. You have non-local healing. You have so many things that we used to talk about years ago. It was woo-woo. It was like, that's crazy, you
yeah,
know. And now you have millions of people, whether they're coming in through, as you say, they want to reduce their stress or they want to manifest something or something like that. Doesn't matter. It's all a
yeah,
Trojan
yeah,
horse to get people in.
yeah.
You know, I remember when
Yeah.
people years ago criticized me for being in the movie The Secret, and I said, it's a Trojan horse. You just, you just catch people where they are.
Right,
People want a better
right.
life. They want their body to be healed. They want
Yeah,
prosperity. They want good relationships.
yeah.
Meet them where they are.
Yes.
Eventually, as they stick their toe in, they're going to discover that there's
Yeah,
something broader than
yeah,
the baubles of the world.
yeah,
Just get them in the door.
yeah, yeah.
But listen, your
Okay.
book,
Yeah.
Original Love, The Four Ends on the Path of Awakening, what are the main tenets and what did you want people to take away from this book? That's out,
Okay, thank
by
you,
the way. Yeah.
man. Okay. The number one tenet is you are loved.
Mm.
That's number one.
Hmm.
And then and then number two is the experience of being one with all there is real.
Hmm.
Is real. And then number three is you don't have to wait until you have that experience in order to be starting to receive into your own experience in day-to-day life little hits of the same love.
This is very important tenet right there.
Right.
You don't have to wait for the big thing. Yeah, talk a little bit more about that before you get to number 4.
Yeah, okay. So I break down the 4 ins, that 3 of them are ins of ways of growing that we can do without having a great cosmic union with the whole universe. And then the 4th in is about that cosmic union. So the first in is mindfulness. That's getting back to this basic awareness that we all already have, where we've got that little bit of space where we can allow and even cherish and appreciate our experience here and now. And getting into that is really deeply healing. And it goes with getting more aware of this body, what this body is experiencing. You can ground it in the body, you know. So that's the first in. And it's like an in on the trail of life. You're having a weary slog up the valleys of life. Hey, there's an in you can rest in and grow in and get refreshed and replenished and refueled and nourished in the in, you know, and it's mindfulness. And then, but then a lot of people, they think of the mindfulness as something they do on their own. It's like going to the gym. I got to do my breath reps, you know? And that's wrong, you know? It's actually the heart of meditation, I believe, is discovering how connected we are.
Okay.
So that second in is all about support and connection, you know, and that's, you know, that's both discovering and recognizing the way we owe our life to a million other things, trillion other things.
And other people that's gone before us.
And other people that's gone before. This
Yeah.
whole mind and heart.
Yeah.
I didn't make it, you know, it's come down through human beings, you know. Yeah, exactly.
You're reminding me of something. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago. It was my birthday. And I remember when I was speaking, suddenly I could see, I was telling the community that when you see me, you see a vast team behind me. It's not just me up here speaking. It's all the iterations of everyone who's ever supported me and supported the community and all the beings who not even in the body anymore. They're all this big team of support allows me to stand here today. And of course, the vast universal presence
Yes.
that called me to do this, you know,
Yeah.
so this is not, you're not looking at me, you're looking at a big we.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I'm hearing you say here. This is great.
That's right. That's beautiful. I love that. It's almost, I was getting this image of like the prow of a ship.
Yeah.
There's a huge ship behind, you know, and this
Right.
is just some piece of it that happens to be presenting. Yeah.
Right. I like
So
that.
that's the second in. And then the third in is what I call flow or absorption. It's when we get into that gear shift, and it could be in any activity, including meditation, where suddenly there's no effort. Effort has vanished and we're carried, and we've it's so fulfilling. We feel we need nothing else, you know, and I call it like falling in love with now. You know, and it's a beautiful thing. And you know, many, of course, we, you know, like an athlete in the zone,
Right.
a musician when they're hardly there, it's playing itself, you know,
Right.
and so on. But it's also in meditation. There's these beautiful states come on where suddenly, yeah, it's like a current that's not ours, just sort of carries us. And we feel so richly fulfilled. And I love them because they're they teach us, actually. I think they teach us something, which is that we don't need that much to be really happy, you know, because like, you know, here we are, we're just sitting here and we can be in great contentment, deep fulfillment, you know.
That's a
We
big one.
haven't got nothing special going
Right.
on, you know? But anyway, all of that are those ways we can grow without having cosmic unity, you know. And then the fourth in is where cosmic unity seeps through the cracks. The we kind of dissolve, and the barriers disappear, and we melt into the vast ocean of consciousness, the vast ocean of creation, the vast ocean of existence. And in a really deep experience, we even all of that can kind of disappear, and there's just the nameless source.
Yes. Yes. I feel it. Absolutely. So that is the original love, the four ends on the path of awakening. That was a great, great, great description. So two or three things before we close our conversation. One is tell us about the Mountain Cloud Zen Center in Santa Fe. Two, how do you take back your mind when you're caught?
Yeah.
And three, is there anything left unsaid here?
Okay. Okay. So Mountain Cloud Zen Center is a beautiful old adobe building and center for meditation practice. I'm a little less involved with it right now. I'm more busy with an app called
The
The
app,
Way,
right,
you
right.
know?
Tell us about the app.
Well, the app is like a practical what we've just been talking about, and with the book and a lot of what we've been talking about. The app is like, okay, there's a lot of meditation apps out there, and nearly all of them give the user a 100 or 1,000 choices. Do this course for this course for that, this course for that. And our research showed us that there's a lot of people who are like, that's too many choices. I want to be shown what to do, you know. And so we created this single pathway app where you just get given a meditation. You can choose only one thing, how long it is, 10, 20, or 30 minutes. And then when you've done that one, the next one lines up, and you just do that. But what it does is it leads you through these four ins.
Ah,
So you
very
get on a
good.
journey that guides you, and you do it cyclically. You go through the four ins one time, and then you do it again. So you're getting deeper and deeper. And my thinking was to create this really integrated, wholesome, all around approach to spiritual development through meditation. So
Beautiful.
it's trying to cover most of the key bases that you'll need, you know. And so that's been a lot of my energy has been going into that, you know.
Very, very powerful description. So your app goes right along with your book.
Yes,
They're hand in hand.
they are. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Um, and then sometimes we have twice a month we have online gatherings that are known as Original Love gatherings, and people come from around the world to those. So that's been fun. And you know, sometimes I do in-person things as well. I'm going to DC, New York in October, and having one in Santa Fe in October as well. And you know, so there's different things going on. I've done them in London, but that's all on my website, henryshukman.com. Oh yeah. Yeah. When I need to take back my mind, um, I want to be still, physically body still. Then I want to just plug in to what is there somewhere in my body that I can really locate as the source of some distress or some being caught up in something. And then I want to love it. I want to find the love for it, you know. And
Beautiful.
yeah, and then I'm here again, you know.
Right. No
Yeah.
resistance, just acceptance.
Exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful. Henry, it's been a joy being with you. It's been great. Thank you so much for being with us on Take Back Your Mind, and tell us your website once again. And
Yeah.
this has been great.
Yeah, Reverend Michael, I want to just say that right back to you. It's been a really thrilling conversation for me. And I'm not just honored, but just joyous
Yeah, from the very
to have.
first second we saw each other on the screen, it was just like just like connection.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like we were continuing a conversation we had been having for a while.
Yeah, who knows? Somehow mysteriously, maybe we have. Who
Yeah,
knows?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, my website again is henryshukman.com, and the app is The Way. It's live on the App Store and Google Play. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being with us, and absolutely appreciate your presence and the great work you're doing and the many people that you have touched and the many people that you'll continue to touch to be a part of this tremendous awakening that's now taking place on the planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dynamic blessings, and welcome to the meditation portion of Take Back Your Mind. For anyone who has followed my teachings or attended Agape, for a number of years, we have at least 4 paths to awakening: affirmative scientific prayer, meditation, life visioning, and sacred service. And of course, there are spiritual classes and then the power of community. But meditation is always fundamental in what is taught by myself, by the practitioners at Agape, by the ministers, and ultimately we're seeking to have people come in to a practice of meditation that provides a level of insight, expanded awareness, and the clearing of the filters from our perception, that we can begin to see more clearly the beauty and the love of our very own soul. Our intrinsic nature is love and life and intelligence. So I invite you in this instant, we're just going to sit for a few moments, to just sit together and be aware that you're in a field of thousands of people tuning in to just sit together. Close your outer eyes. Perhaps have your hands facing upward in a sign of receptivity. Perhaps have your thumb and your forefinger touching as a sign of, let's say, transcending the little perception of the ego. Become conscious that your body is breathing. You're not breathing. Let the body breathe on its own. This is not pranayama. Just breathing. Body's breathing. It's happening presently. So at this present moment, breathing with an intention to wake up to our glorious nature. Search your body, the emotional body, the mental body, or even the physical body. Just search it. And notice if there anything in the emotional body, the mental body, physical body, that you might call a disturbance. You don't have to make it up, just if it's there. And if it is, take your attention and observe it. Embrace it without judgment, without resistance, without trying to make it go away. Just observe. This act of embracing allows you to participate in the observer effect. Anything that we observe changes on a subatomic level, an invisible level, just based on observation. So without judgment or resistance, we just observe whatever state the body, the mind, the emotional body might be in without judging it. As we embrace an intention for our own growth and development, our own unfolding, just be with it. total observation without judgment leads you to an awareness, ultimately, that what you are witnessing, whatever state your mind or emotional body or physical body may be in, that's content in your expanded awareness. It's not your identity. It's something passing through. Don't deny it. You embrace it without judgment and with deep compassion and love. Whether it's sadness, impatience, judgmentalism, feeling of emotional or physical pain. Just watch it. Embrace it with deep love. Notice, even with this brief couple of moments together, that which you have observed dispassionately, but with compassion and love, is already changing based on observation and love. So we allow ourselves to come into a great deal of gratitude that we exist at all. And we give thanks for our continued unfoldment from glory to an even greater glory. And we allow it to be so. And so it is. Amen. Thank you so much for your participation. Be aware that you're hanging with thousands of people who are practicing the art and science of meditation in this particular podcast. And this community is assisting you in buoying you up into your greater yet to be. And most importantly, your super soulful self is thanking you for just taking the time to be still so they can come through. Blessings. Peace and blessings. I truly hope that you are enjoying Take Back Your Mind podcast. The Take Back Your Mind podcast is sponsored primarily by the Agape International Spiritual Center. In other words, everything that you see in terms of the staff that puts this together, the editing, the equipment, all of this is sponsored by our Agape International Spiritual Center. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'm inviting you to support the sponsor. Support Agape. Simply go to agapelive.com and make a donation. And say in the donation that you are supporting the podcast. It allows us to keep broadcasting. It allows us to keep putting these magnificent moments together with these wonderful people that I get to interview. We keep having the possibility of updating the equipment that's necessary and providing the wonderful content that many of you are writing in and saying, I really love the podcast. Support the podcast. Support the sponsor. Agape International Spiritual Center. agapelive.com. You can also text to donate. You can text the word give to 424-321-6243 and put podcast so that we know that you're really supporting this wonderful podcast. Our secondary sponsor is Adapta Zen, Adaptozen. This is my superfood greens. It's nutritionally dense because I teach spirit, mind, and body. We want our body temples to be healthy. So one of the products is my superfood greens. You can go to NutraRise.com. Those three little lines you see, you hit those three little lines and you'll see Adapta Zen. There's two products, my superfood greens and a product called Elevate, which are organic mushrooms for your health. You can put both in your smoothies so that you have main ingredients for the health of your body temple. These are our sponsors. Primary sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center. Secondary sponsor, Adapt to Zen. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be wise. Circulate and share. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.